For the system to let me know that we are live, and we're live. And so today we're going to review the Center for Disease Control leading causes of mortality during the year 2024. This is something that we do every year, and I want to thank you for being here. Of course, any questions are fair game. Metabolic health, nutrition, fitness, you know the story. So we're going to dive into this new data set from the Centers for Disease Control, from their Morbidity Mortality Weekly Report. This is something that we've been doing for quite a long time. I want to just see how many folks can guess the leading causes of mortality for the year 2024. Before we actually start, is it cancer? Is it heart disease? Is it COVID-19? Is it infectious diseases? Let me know, my friends, before we continue. I want to just look and see where you're commenting from. If you're enjoying the content, hit that like button. We're going to dive right into it. So the CDC just posted this on their website. The leading causes of mortality and morbidity during the year 2024. So let's get into it. I'm going to make it more bold for many of you listening. In fact, what we're going to do is I'm going to clear this layer and we're going to go down here and dive into it. How is everyone doing today? Hopefully you're all doing quite well. Let's get into the Morbidity Mortality Weekly Report. Ta-da, here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna make myself a little bit smaller here and off to the races we go. Okay, so this is right from the horse's mouth, as they say, from the CDC's website. Now, why do we share this information? So that you can focus your health efforts on things that actually matter. Many people are eating Snickers and Kit Kat bars and drinking soda pop and so forth, yet we know that insulin resistance is a precipitating factor leading to premature morbidity and mortality from cardiovascular disease, which it turns out has been the leading cause of premature morbidity and mortality in the US for the past 20 years, really. So cardiovascular disease claims 683,000 lives, sadly, during the year 2024. There's a lot of speculation as to why heart disease is on the rise. I'm sure many of you in the comment section can speculate on that. Let me know in the comment section. Sadly, if you know anyone who has suffered from cardiovascular disease, we have cancer, 619,000 deaths, which is up, by the way. Malignant neoplasms is the jargonistic phrase for speaking and talking about cancer. And so we know that sadly cancer disease deaths are on the rise, which is really unfortunate. So that is what is going on there. Let's go on down the list here. Accidents and unintended injuries. So we're talking automobile accidents, stabbing, shootings, things like that, deaths of despair and so forth. Going on down the list, we have cerebrovascular disease. So when you clump cardiovascular disease and strokes into one category, we're talking about nearly 800,000 people dying every single year from these conditions. And that is really unfortunate. So strokes, cardiovascular disease is on the rise. Again, any questions are fair game. Thank you for being here, Brett, Matt. We have Eco Bra 169. Okay, why are strokes and heart attacks on the rise? That's a really important question. So let me know in the comment section below if you're enjoying the content. Hit that like button. We are diving into recent reports from the CDC. We have a comment here. I seen an article about a glass bottle drinks having more microplastic than plastic bottles. Okay, microplastic. Let's dive into this. This is really interesting. Food packaging is obviously a problem. And so this is really incredulous. So glass bottles found to contain more microplastics than plastic bottles, article finds. This is really interesting. It has to do with the cap of the bottle, which I think is really counterintuitive because I always tell my clients to stop drinking out of plastic, but drinks including water, soda, beer, and wine sold in glass bottles contain more microplastics than those in plastic bottles, according to a surprising study released by France's Food Safety Agency Friday. Researchers have detected the tiny, mostly invisible pieces of plastic throughout the world, from the air we breathe to the food we eat, as well as riddled throughout human bodies. There is still no direct evidence that this preponderance of plastic is harmful to human health. Wrong. But a burgeoning field of research is aiming to measure its spread. So, the researchers found on average around 100 microplastic particles per liter in glass bottles of soft drinks, lemonade, iced tea, and beer. That was 5 to 50 times higher than the rate detected in plastic bottles or metal cans. We expected the opposite results, the investigators say. We noticed that in the glass, the particles emerging from samples were the same shape, color, and polymer composition, so therefore the same plastic as the paint on the outside of the caps that seal the glass bottles. The paint on the caps also has tiny scratches invisible to the naked eye, probably due to the friction between the caps and where they were stored, the agency said in a statement. These particles are released into the water. Wine has microplastics. I mean, this stuff is everywhere. It's really, really sad. So what are your thoughts there? I think, for me, what this means is we should just be drinking filtered water at home. There's a company called Culligan Water Systems, and they have different franchises and so forth. And so I use their system. Actually, I need to change out my filters. So important stuff. Let's get to some more questions. I love your questions. Any question is fair game. Again, hit that like button if you're enjoying the content. And here we go. Okay. So we got Matt from Wichita, Kansas. Has the age of heart attacks gone down? Yes, in fact. And we can go back to this page here. So we're seeing younger and younger people getting heart attacks and strokes. Okay. So this is sad. So what do we make of this? I think many of us know what that is, so I'm not going to get into that. Brett from Spokane says he cannot afford to get sick anymore. Yes, I am with you there. Okay. Suzanne says, my granddaughter eats and drinks from those things that you named, and she lets her kids eat them too. So I sent this to her. I don't eat processed foods and just turned 79. That is awesome. So keep up the great work, Suzanne. All right. Getting back to the leading causes of mortality in the U.S., I want to get to this story right here. Why are young people having heart attacks? There's many related stories to this. This is just one of many stories. The article goes on to say, heart attacks have traditionally been thought of as a concern for older adults, not something that people under the age of 50 would tend to worry about, but growing research shows quite the opposite. While heart attack rates are declining in older populations, they're rising among younger adults, those in their 30s and even their 20s. It's not just heart attacks. Heart-related illnesses overall are becoming much more prevalent in young adults compared to decades past. Studies have found that cardiovascular-related hospitalizations have significantly increased among adults under the age 45, and that nearly half of all heart attack patients in recent years were under 54 years of age or younger. Dr. Ron Blankstein, a preventative cardiology specialist at Brigham and Women's Hospital and professor at Harvard Medical School, joined GBH's All Things Considered host. Okay, what we have seen nationally is the statistics that even though, due to a lot of our efforts, the rate of heart attacks has gone down, the proportion of heart attacks in young individuals has actually increased over time. My group has been very, very motivated by this statistic to try to figure out why that is. The quote here is, these heart attacks are not happening out of the blue. Even young individuals often believe that they are the picture of health until they had a heart attack. Okay, so let's really get into the article and hear why. I'm not sure what his speculation is, and I'm not familiar with this individual. So I think we all kind of know what's going on here, and they do recommend a coronary artery calcium score or a CT angiogram. So that's interesting. I can't help but wonder if it's because we're eating more industrialized oils that were never made for human consumption, along with, of course, ultra processed foods and the sedentary activities. Obviously, a major problem. And so we've shared the statistics here that we are eating much more sugar, much more corn oil, and the like, and that is problematic. And we're actually eating way less red meat than we used to. Butter is on the decline. So what is the root cause of all of this? Well, it turns out that when we eat these ultra-processed foods, they cause intermittent gastrointestinal dysfunction that leaks inflammatory pathogens from our intestines into the what should be sterile components of the body and trigger both metabolic and immune-mediated diseases and inflammation, which is quite problematic. But you might think, well, it's the red meats and so forth. Well, it turns out that we are actually eating much less red meat compared to years past. We're eating much more chicken, much more farm-raised fish and seafood and the like. And so that is obviously part of the problem, is we're eating just a bunch of ultra-processed junk and malarkey, and that is quite the issue here. But this is a great screenshot for you, noting that animal fat consumption is down significantly, and that does not appear to have any temporal correlation with the rise in cardiovascular-related mortality and deaths. So that is that. Let's get on to some of your questions. Sheila says, my niece just turned 40 and had 2 aneurysms and a stroke. This is really sad. I will be 43 in about a month, and I couldn't imagine having aneurysms and a stroke at this age. That's really, really sad. Okay. Besides diet, I'd be curious if vaping has anything to do with this. Yes, of course, vaping is increasingly problematic. We do know about that. So, what do you think, friends? Any nutrition, metabolic health related question? If you're enjoying the content, hit that like button. Thank you for showing up for this rather impromptu live on a Thursday here. We've been reviewing, for those of you just now tuning in, the information from our own CDC finding that diseases from cardiovascular disease appear to be on the rise, claiming some 683,000 lives during the last calendar year. Diseases from deaths from cancer are actually on the rise as well, claiming 619,000 lives. We have unintentional injuries, accidents, shootings, and stabbings. Of course, they are increased because of lawlessness throughout the United States. And cerebrovascular diseases, strokes, and problems within the vasculature of the brain is on the rise as well. It turns out that both diabetes and, Alzheimer's disease are also on the rise. Alzheimer's disease claimed 116,000 lives last year. Diabetes claimed almost 100,000 lives last year. Yet you still see people in grocery stores buying complete malarkey and filling up their grocery carts with crap while they still wear facial coverings and gloves. I don't understand the cognitive dissonance, but some people seem to think that diet-induced diseases are not serious or not worthy of being very intentional about the foods that they consume. Okay. Hyper novelty, too many changes too fast. How can epigenetics keep up? Yeah, it's really hard. Obviously, epigenetics and transgenerational epigenetics are serious things that we should be considering. What other questions do you have? My friends, questions, comments, let me know in the comment section below. This is a great time to talk about blood work, talk about labs, anything you want to address is fair game, or we can just hang out. We can talk about whatever, what we're up to at Myoscience. We've actually opened up our own manufacturing facility, so we're actually making our own products now, which is really, really exciting. For those of you that don't really yet know, if you're not on our email newsletter list, we just launched one of the cleanest creatines on the market. This is a Creapure raw material. We have the micronized version coming out very, very soon. Excellent feedback from our customers using this. Increased energy, better workouts. There's over 15 reviews over at myoscience.com on the ultra pure creatine. Tons of research on creatine. Creatine creatine is very important for cellular energy production in energetically demanding tissues, such as the brain, such as the retina, your eye, such as the muscle, such as heart, placenta, and beyond. Creatine is phenomenal. So we can get into creatine science if you would like. But yeah, I do want to address some of your live questions. Scott says, we're growing our own grain to comply with gluten issues. What grains do you recommend? Yeah, the grains that I would recommend would be sourdough or fermented grains. Bluebird, Bluebird einkorn. So this is what I suggest. Fermented, of course, this flour, no financial affiliation with this company at all, but is grown right here in Washington State, my home state where I reside. Obviously, there's a lot of issues in Washington State. If you haven't been to Seattle recently, then you don't really know what I'm talking about. However, outside of the Seattle area, there's a lot of fertile growing land. And when you ferment this flour, you have an amazing grain. And so I'm a fan of the sourdough fermentation process. So, yeah, that's what I would suggest. Of course, any grain should be soaked and sprouted and or fermented prior to consumption. So there's that. Not a fan of hemp. There's a lot of things in there in hemp that preclude digestion. The One Who Knows says, downstream effects of poor functioning metabolism. It takes 10 to 20 years to manifest. Yeah, these diseases have a long latency period. So, sadly, that is the case. So, Scott, yeah, we have a lot of great videos with the one and only Bill Schindler coming out about this as well. So, yeah, friends, for those of you just tuning in, we've been diving into the CDC's recent report here, finding for the 5th year in a row, cardiovascular disease remains the #1 leading cause of mortality. So what does that mean? Well, you should exercise. You should stop eating processed food, industrialized seed oils, sugars, refined sugars, sugar-sweetened beverages, and beyond. Okay. What other questions do we have? Comments, questions? Let's chat. How's the weather where you are? It's starting to get really nice here in Seattle, which I quite like. So that's what we got, my friends. This is the table, if you want to dive more into it. So that's it. Well, if you enjoyed this content, I would appreciate you giving this video a like, a share. You can share this with a friend. We're going to be doing more research into this down the road. And we definitely want to unearth why are heart-related diseases and mortality on the rise. We'll dive into that more later, friends. I very much appreciate you tuning in live. We will catch you on a future live next week. Have an awesome evening. Hopefully you're going to get out and go to the gym and do some exercise. And we will catch you all later. Have a great day now.